5 years, gone, just like that. My voice cracked, barely a whisper. The metallic tang of fear and adrenaline coated my tongue. Standing there in the wreckage of what was supposed to be my happy ever after, I knew I was making a choice that would shatter everything. Maybe I was being a coward, or maybe I was finally choosing survival. The truth is, I don't know if I did the right thing, even now. It all started with a simple request, a plea for help. I should have said no. I should have slammed the door shut and protected my marriage, my sanity. But I didn't. I let them in. And that's when the nightmare began. See, my wife Kelly comes from a, let's just say, close-knit family. You know the type, the kind where everyone knows everyone's business and boundaries are about as effective as a screen door on a submarine. I'm a private guy, an introvert who needs his space like a plant needs sunlight, oil and water. But Kelly, bless her heart, couldn't see the storm brewing. For 2 years I endured the constant intrusions, the passive-aggressive comments, the feeling of being an outsider in my own home. I tried to talk to Kelly, to explain how suffocating it felt, but she couldn't bring herself to choose between her family and me, and then her whole world exploded. Her parents, who I'd always pictured as the epitome of suburban bliss, were getting divorced after 40 years of marriage. Turns out Kelly's dad, Bob, had been living a secret life for 15 years, shacking up with some, well, let's just say a woman who wasn't his wife. When Bob decided he was madly in love and wanted to make things official, he kicked his family out of the house with the swiftness of a reality TV villain. Suddenly, Kelly's mom, Susan, her sister, Sarah, and Sarah's 2 rambunctious sons, Cody and Jake, were homeless. Kelly was devastated. I tried to be supportive, to be the strong shoulder she needed. I even offered to let them stay with us, just temporarily. "Michael, you're an angel," Kelly said, her eyes glistening with gratitude. "I don't know what we'd do without you." "Hey, we're family," I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. The words tasted like ash in my mouth. That was the turning point. That was when the floodgates opened. The next 3 months were a blur of chaos and resentment. Our quiet suburban home transformed into a crowded, noisy, and increasingly hostile environment. Susan, bless her heart, was a nervous wreck, constantly reliving the details of Bob's betrayal. She'd corner me in the kitchen, her voice trembling as she dissected every aspect of their marriage. "He said she was his soulmate, Michael. After 40 years, can you believe it?" I'd nod sympathetically, trying to tune out the drone of her voice and focus on the dishes piling up in the sink. I'm not a therapist. I just wanted to eat dinner in peace. Sarah, on the other hand, was a different kind of challenge. Entitled and lazy, she treated our house like a free hotel. She'd commandeer the TV, binge-watching reality shows for hours on end. She'd raid the fridge, devouring my carefully curated collection of craft beers and artisanal cheeses. And then there were the boys, Cody and Jake, ages 8 and 6. They were miniature tornadoes, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. Crayon drawings on the walls, sticky fingerprints on the furniture, and my prized vinyl collection, well, let's just say the Beatles will never sound the same again. But the worst part was the constant invasion of my personal space. I'd find them using my bathroom, the one attached to our bedroom, even though there were 2 other perfectly functional bathrooms in the house. Sarah started taking naps on our bed. Our bed! That was the limit. Discovering her sprawled across it, snoring softly, felt like a violation, a personal affront. "Kelly, this has to stop," I said one evening, my voice tight with suppressed anger. "Sarah is sleeping in our bed. That's just wrong." Kelly sighed, rubbing her temples. "She's just stressed, Michael. She needs a place to relax." "Our bed is not a public napping facility," I exploded, instantly regretting the harshness of my tone. "It's our bed. It's supposed to be private, for us." She'd promised to talk to Sarah, but the naps continued, albeit less frequently. And the boys? Well, they just kept being boys. The tension in the house became unbearable. I started snapping at Kelly, lashing out at her family. One evening, after finding them stripping my mini orchard, a small collection of fruit trees I'd painstakingly cultivated in the backyard, bare, I finally lost it. I yelled at Kelly in front of her family, telling her how fed up I was, how much I resented their constant presence. The room went silent. Mortified, they packed their bags and left, their faces tight with resentment. Kelly and I had the biggest fight of our marriage, a screaming match that echoed through the empty house. I ended up sleeping at the Holiday Inn, the bland anonymity of the room a welcome relief. I warned her then, told her that I was reaching the breaking point. I needed her to choose, me or them. She looked at me with hurt in her eyes. "Michael, you're asking me to abandon my family," she whispered, her voice trembling. "No," I cried, running a hand through my hair. "I'm asking you to prioritize our marriage. I'm asking you to set some boundaries, to protect what we have." But Kelly, fiercely loyal and fiercely protective of her family, couldn't or wouldn't see my point. In her mind, it was an impossible choice, a Sophie's choice for the suburban set. Things never really recovered after that. I tried to be understanding, to be patient, but the resentment continued to fester. The house felt like a battleground, a constant tug-of-war between my needs and Kelly's family obligations. Then came today. I arrived home from work, exhausted and emotionally drained. It had been one of those days, the kind where everything goes wrong, where the universe seems to be conspiring against you. I just wanted to relax, to unwind in my own home, to escape the chaos of the world. But as I pulled into the driveway, I saw it, her brother, Mark's, beat-up Honda Civic parked directly in front of the entrance, blocking my way. He hadn't even bothered to pull it to the side. It was just sitting there, smack dab in the middle. I couldn't even get to the garage without driving over the lawn. Rage, hot and blinding, flooded my veins. I slammed the car into park and stormed into the house. And there he was, Mark, sprawled on the couch, shoes on, remote in hand, flipping through channels. He looked up, gave me a lazy grin, like he was the king of the castle. That was it. That was the breaking point, the culmination of 2 years of resentment, frustration, and suppressed anger. I didn't say a word. I turned around, went to our bedroom, and started packing. Kelly followed me, her face etched with confusion and growing fear. "Michael, what are you doing?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I'm leaving," I said, my voice flat and emotionless. "I can't do this anymore." "But where are you going?" "It doesn't matter," I replied, shoving clothes into my suitcase. "Anywhere is better than here." She started to cry, begging me to stay, to talk things out, but I was done talking. I'd talked until I was blue in the face. It was time for action. I didn't look back as I walked out the door. I didn't acknowledge her tearful pleas, her desperate promises that things would change. I just kept walking, one step at a time, until I reached my car. I called a few lawyers on the way to the cheap motel I'd booked, leaving messages, praying someone would call me back soon. I needed to start the divorce proceedings. As I drove away, I caught a glimpse of Kelly standing in the doorway, her face a mask of despair. A sharp pang of guilt pierced my heart, but it was quickly drowned out by the overwhelming sense of relief. I was free. She called me relentlessly that night, leaving message after message on my voicemail. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I needed space, time to process what had happened, to figure out what to do next. It's been 6 months since that day. The divorce is final. I'm living in a small, sterile apartment downtown, far removed from the suburban life I once knew. I spend my days working, trying to keep busy, and my nights, well, let's just say they're quiet. Too quiet. I started seeing a therapist, trying to unpack the years of resentment, to understand why I stayed in that situation for so long. She tells me I have boundary issues, that I need to learn how to assert myself, to prioritize my own needs. It's a work in progress. Kelly and I haven't spoken. I don't know how she's doing, if she's reconciled with her family, or if she ever regrets her choices. Sometimes, late at night, I find myself wondering if I should reach out, offer an olive branch, but then I remember the feeling of suffocation, the constant invasion of my privacy, the years of feeling like an outsider in my own home, and the words die in my throat. So here I am, 6 months later, still questioning my decision. Was I too inflexible, too selfish? Was I right to walk away from my marriage, to prioritize my own sanity? What would you have done? Have you ever faced a similar situation? What advice would you give me now? Let me know in the comments. I'm genuinely struggling to find some peace with this and value any perspective.